Plugins are one of the most useful features of WordPress. WordPress.org defines plugins as ways to extend and add to the functionality that already exists in WordPress. Sounds a lot like the definition we use for widgets, right? Well, there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that in a minute. Basically, like we said for widgets, plugins for WordPress are similar to what apps are for a phone. Again, that sounds like how we explained widgets, but that's because plugins and widgets are essentially one and the same. Think of widgets as one way to display or use a plugin. You can have widgets that aren't necessarily plugins, but for simplicity, it's better for now if you think of widgets as tools you can use to display plugins and added features. Here's another way to think about the relationship between plugins and widgets. To get a new plugin on your site, you have to download and install it, similar to how we did for themes. Depending on what type of plugin it is, there are usually two ways to display plugins or use plugins on your site. One way is to use what's called a shortcode, which looks like this. And another way is to use the plugin's widget and put it in one of your theme's widget areas. If you're still confused, here's an example. Let's say you want a contact form in your sidebar. Well, after poking around our theme a bit, we know that our sidebar is one of our theme's widget areas, so we go to our widgets to see if maybe there's a contact form we can put in there. As you can see, there isn't a widget for a contact form, so we're going to need to add functionality to our WordPress site, which is the definition of a plugin. So let's see if we can find a plugin for this. We'll click Plugins on the left-hand side, and we'll see a list of plugins that we have currently installed. You may be wondering what these plugins are, but don't worry about that for now. For now, we're just going to click Add New at the top, and we're taken to the plugin repository. The WordPress plugin repository is similar to the theme directory, but for plugins. All plugins in this area are free, just like themes, and the install process is similar too. To find what we need, we're going to search for contact form in the search bar and hit enter. You'll see a long list of contact form plugins, but in this instance, let's say I've done some research on the web and found one particular contact form plugin that has a lot of good reviews. It's called Contact Form 7, so I'm going to search for that specific name and hit enter. And there it is. Now, we can click more details if we want to read more about it and how to use it. This is important because it's one of the most confusing things about plugins. Remember how I said that plugins are typically displayed or used in one of two ways? Using the plugin's widget or using its shortcode? Well, more often than not, you're going to have to use a shortcode to display or use your plugin, and each plugin shortcode is found in a different place depending on the plugin's developer. Some plugins will have the shortcode you need to use sitting under the description section of the plugin details seen here, while other plugins may have it under the installation section here. Some plugins like this one give you the shortcode you need to use after you've created a form, so we won't see it here. Shortcodes can be frustrating to find, but remember, to display your plugin or use your plugin, more often than not, you have to have either a shortcode or a widget. There is an exception to that, but we'll talk about that at the end of this video. For now, let's install this plugin so we can see how it works. Now that we've installed the plugin, where do we find it so we can start using it? This is another confusing part about WordPress plugins. Every plugin can show up in a different place in your WordPress dashboard. It completely depends on the plugin's developer. Some plugin developers will put their plugin's dashboard or settings under the Settings tab. Some will put it under the Tools tab, some will only put it in as a widget, and some will create a completely new tab altogether for their plugin. Sometimes it takes some looking around, But just know that when you install a plugin, that plugin's dashboard or settings section won't necessarily go to one particular place in your dashboard. It looks like this plugin has created its own tab in our WordPress dashboard navigation, which makes it easy to find. We'll go into our plugin, click Add New at the top to create a new form, and then click Save when we're done building the form. The settings I use in this particular form are outside the scope of this video, but good plugin developers will give you instructions on how to use their plugins. You'll just have to go into Plugins and click View Details to see instructions. With this particular plugin, now that we've created a form, we can see that it gives us our shortcode to use in order to display it. We can use this shortcode anywhere we have a text editor on our site. So I'm going to copy our shortcode, head over to our widgets section, drag a text widget into our primary sidebar, then paste our shortcode in, and click Save. Now when we go to our site and click Refresh, we see our new contact form displaying. With this plugin, the shortcode was easy to find, but not all plugins make it easy to find their shortcode. You'll likely have to do some searching to find the shortcode for some plugins, and other plugins won't have shortcodes at all. It just depends on the purpose and use of the plugin. When in doubt, it never hurts to Google the name of the plugin followed by shortcode, and you'll likely find someone else asking the same question. Now, one more thing before we wrap up. Remember how we said that most plugins use shortcodes and widgets to display on your site? Well, there is an exception. See, not all plugins can be displayed on your site. Some plugins are created to simply solve a problem, and there is no way to display them. There should still be a settings section for most plugins you install, and those will show up somewhere in your WordPress dashboard like we talked about earlier, but not all plugins are meant to be displayed. This is an important point because it helps you understand what a plugin actually is. Remember, plugins add functionality to your site. That could be a contact form, or it could just be a plugin that speeds up your site's load time, in which case there's nothing to really do other than tweak the plugin's settings a bit and make sure it's activated. Think of it this way. Let's say you're running your WordPress site when you come to a problem you need solved. Maybe it's that your site is running slowly, or maybe you just need security so your site doesn't get hacked. Without WordPress, you would likely have to hire a developer to write custom code to add these features to your website. Well, with WordPress, that's what plugins are for. It's like a pre-packaged solution built by a developer that can be free or cost money. That's right, just like themes, you can also buy premium plugins by going to sites like themeforest.net or by simply Googling WordPress plugin for blank. This, in my opinion, is what makes WordPress so great. The ability to do almost anything you want with your website without paying thousands of dollars to a developer to build it. All you have to do, in most cases, is find the right plugin. All right, that was a lot to take in for anyone new to WordPress. I would encourage you to search around on the internet for things like best plugins for a new WordPress website, and look around the WordPress plugin repository as well so you can really see the types of things plugins can do. Then, when you're ready, we're going to go over how to customize your theme in the next video.